for the meat of the meeting is for you guys to be comfortable with how you are evaluating the applications. So unless something changes right now, we have gotten 20 applications, which is amazing.
Do you mind if I close the door? Sorry.
What's that?
Do you mind if I close that door?
Please.
Is that okay?
Totaling over $223,000 in asks.
Amazing.
It is amazing. So you will have a hard time evaluating those. So I wish you luck, but I think the point of today is, and I think we have 93,000, I have to look at the number, to give out. So there'll be some hard decisions to be made. So I'll turn the meeting over to you guys. Also, one thing I'd like to say is, so I got a lot of questions from a lot of applicants. And the things that were black and white, eligibility, I was able to answer, but there were some judgment calls where I just had to say, well, I'm not the rating committee. So I also told people that we would have a lot of flexibility with them this year. So if they submitted a thorough application but didn't get something right or something was unclear, we weren't going to throw it out. We were going to reach out to them and have them clarify things. So there's a couple people who, one thing I did learn is nobody really liked the budget sheet that we prepared. So I've told people, submit a budget that works for you. If it doesn't work for the committee, we'll reach out. And that's something we'll address after this is over. So if you guys do have questions throughout when you guys review them, just be forgiving and we'll ask questions.
Okay.
Then I will, like I said, I'll turn it over to you guys to figure out how you want to evaluate them.
I had a few questions for the committee. Just jump in, I guess. On the overall project rating, I think we talked about it a little bit last time, but right now we have it as poor, fair, good, very good, excellent. And so my question is how we think we're going to, so we're all going to rank them individually, and then we're going to get together at the next meeting and go through them and discuss. From my perspective, it seems that it would be easier to put numerical values on those categories, like 1 through 5.
I thought we had discussed that.
We did sort of
Yeah,
discuss it. We hadn't
okay.
made any decisions
Okay.
about it. And I just,
Yeah.
and just the way I'm envisioning us doing it, and this is for discussion certainly, is, we would all come in and say, okay, let's talk about the quality of this project. And I gave it a 5, you gave it a 3, any discussion about that, but that we would average that out. And then at the end, the project would end up with a score, right? Is that how everyone's viewing this process?
I kind of envisioned it interesting so that you would like score them all and then the top scoring ones would pop out and then we'd discuss those top scoring ones. I kind of thought that. Then we'd go through it and rehash why that was a 5, not a 3. Rather than going through each one, have each person do it and get their pile of their highest, and then come to the committee to willow out the highest ones. Was that fair? Rather than like...
I think that makes sense to start. We also have to figure out if we are in a position to adjust the amount of money that we're going to approve for a particular project. Can we say we're only, instead of 10,000, we can only afford to give them 6,500 this year? Can we do that just across the board? Okay.
Yeah.
So then that way,
Yeah.
some of the projects that aren't in, maybe don't score really high immediately, there may be opportunities as we go through them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was one of my other questions, is whether we were going to consider partial awards and how that works as far as whether it makes a project, is the project still viable, right? And if it's not in the application, it's hard to know how that's going to shake out. I guess one other question on that is, if we're all scoring, let's say if we were combining scores and averaging, like, is that something we would want to do before the next meeting, have that compiled, and then focus on maybe the top, I don't know, pick a number, projects to actually discuss in the meeting, as opposed to, going through 17, I think I counted.
Yeah, it just-
Together as a group is going to be,
I don't know if we have access to each application, though.
You will. We
Okay.
can talk about that when
Yeah,
we
that would
get
seem
there.
to expedite it.
like if we could get a spreadsheet and then we
Yeah.
could all fill ours out, maybe send it to staff
Sure.
and have it compiled before the meeting. And then if there's outliers where somebody says, well, that was like in my top 5 and it's not even on this, like, can we discuss that as well, or,
Yeah.
because I don't know how we're all going to land. I assume there'll be lots of different opinions on the top, 10 projects or however many we can fund with the,
Yeah. What if maybe we could, on that spreadsheet, I'm just going to rehash what you said to make sure that I fully understand. So like, we would each individually score them 1 to 5 in these categories that are on the back
Evaluation
page,
page,
on the
yeah.
evaluation page. Then we would aggregate all of our scores, and then we would pull out the top ones and then go from there. And then, I don't know, does that sound right?
yeah, I was thinking like you would have, the 4 categories
And just,
and each ranker, and then everyone would put their, and another question is, do we do like half points as well? Because I think with 1 through 5, you can get, sometimes it gets a little hard. You might have a lot scoring in the same window. But and then I was thinking you would average those and add them up. And so each project would end up with a 1 score number.
okay, sounds
Or
good.
But that's
total-
just an,
or
just a
or
total.
total. I guess it doesn't really matter if it's
Yeah.
total or average.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. I'm wondering too, like, if we could add a question that's just like, do you support fully funding this, partially funding this, or like we don't really want to fund it at all, or something like that? Just so we can kind of visually see where people are at with a particular project. That won't aggregate well, but we could.
It would imagine the answer to that question would be, if we're finding just way too many fall into the category, you're gonna decide to partially fund just to spread it. But, so that's a really hard evaluation to put right off the bat, not knowing how many, yeah. So I would think we're all gonna say we wanna, if we have so many that we think are falling into the good categories, we might want to partially fund some. 'Cause we
Yes.
can't change
Well,
the
well,
total amount.
I think once we go through all the applications and come up, we see and can read everything that's presented. And if we do the reviews, then we'll see when we get back together, there'll be some that will stand out. And I think we'll get a sense from all that work when we come in and get together. I said, oh boy, there were, all 15 were great, or we're going to have to make some kind of adjustments to even fulfill the top scores. I think it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I guess that is the question, because we have, it's 93,000. And do you approach it with the assumption that you're going to fully fund projects and you start running down, you rank them and you have, say, a top 10, and you start subtracting from 93 as you work down. And when you hit, and maybe
Right.
you get to like number 8 and the number 9 only needs, you could fully fund it with $1,200 more. And so it's like, okay, we can move some money here or there to add one more funded project into the list, and maybe we'll just have to figure it out when we get there. And
Yeah, it seems that the community contributions program used to do the same thing. They would sort of list the amount asked for and then the committee suggestion. So, who was on that? Right.
I was-
So how did you hash out partial?
So we make the initial recommendation based on the project and the review, and then see what our total is at versus available funds.
That's what
And
yeah.
and go through and see what.
That'd sort of be like jiggling it up. What is our total available fund?
93,000.
Okay, I knew that, I just haven't, thanks.
Seems like the next meeting would be best spent hashing that stuff out is going to be the real.
Yeah.
If we can front load some of the ranking work, I think it makes sense to spend time really trying to figure out how to. I think the goal is to fund as many projects as possible, right?
Yeah. There
Yeah.
isn't really a question that I'm seeing here that gets at like, will your project be feasible without this funding? Which is a hard one to ask anyway, because everyone's gonna be like, yes and no. Like, so I'm okay with it not being there, but lost
I
my train of thought.
interpreted the answer to that being when you look at their budget of their project. So rather than them answering
sure.
that, you kind of look at the percent that they've asked for their total project cost, and that's whether they could do it without it or not, or, I mean, if you emotionally were tying it to that.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
And also in the application, I think they list if they've applied other places or have other grants.
Well, in the budget, we ask if they've had other partners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, did we ask, I forget, what percentage of the total project budget, what percentage of that cost are you asking for in this application?
Yeah,
If
so
you,
We did.
well, if you look at this sheet, we could do the math. Those are the numbers there. So, for instance,
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
their total project
Yeah.
cost, okay.
so that'll factor in.
Yeah, and that's a good gauge if somebody's asking for 3,000 and the project is 3,000.
Right.
If they don't get the money, they're probably not gonna do it.
Yeah. So back to the evaluation criteria of points, were we gonna stick with the idea if we, look at poor, fair, good, very good, excellent, that's 5. So were we gonna do it in aggregates of 20 or just 1 through 5? Before we talked about each group having different, like quality broken down to completeness, value of material, quality and clarity of projects. I didn't know, did we iron that out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I am kind of, I think my perspective is it would be a little easier if you added like if instead of 1 through 5 it was like 1 through 10. I think it gives a little bit more room to, a little more nuance in how you feel about a certain project. 20 may be excessive, but like a 1 through 10. I mean, it's really like, or we could do 1 through 5 with 0.25
I mean,
gradients, right? It's just,
Yeah.
Semantics, yeah. I like 1 through 10, and I also think because there are at least a couple of us that I'm aware of that are going to have to like sit out on certain applications, that we should average them rather than total them.
Average them, so you total up those 4
was
categories.
just back
And if the total is
25.
44,
Breaking down.
that's your total score?
Interesting.
You know,
I can't do mental math enough to know. I was imagining like adding the full score and then averaging the scores of the different committee members.
oh, because all I was thinking was if these are the 4 criteria, and you want to give them a score of 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 40 is your top score. So you go through those, and my ranking, if anybody got a 40, is 39, 38, it goes down. And then you would see where you can fund up until, and it may only be number 6. And then at that point, you say, no, let's just do those, at least to me, we'll do those 6. Probably not. I think we'll look for some adjustments.
I think that makes sense.
That's how I would
I think
do it.
Emily's point was, which is a good point, which is we need to average the committee scores for each category because of conflicts of interest, some people may not. You can't just aggregate, right? Because some projects may be lacking 1 or 2 committee members scoring. And so they would score lower if you were just aggregating. You would have to average them.
I didn't think we'd pick them from our total score combining. I thought we'd choose which ones to then start, like, wean it down. So that's interesting, to get a chance, you know, so if, of the first 17, and we base it on a 1 through 10, we see goes into the first round of evaluating. Oh, so then you're just saying then it's all math, whoever averages out gets,
I think it's the fairest way to do it in a lot of ways.
okay.
Yeah, that's how I see it. The same way that you do. We would all come in, we'd have all our scores, and then we would talk about them.
Yeah,
But we're talking about each of the 4 categories being a 1 through 10. So
yeah.
Right,
potentially a 40, yes, is a perfect score.
right.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to know without looking at the applications whether I'll be supportive of just like, okay, we're gonna just fully fund these projects, partially fund these and drop these, or if I will want to like split it more evenly. I don't know yet.
Well, I think this points out the need that the community has for this kind of program.
Definitely.
That, I mean, I think it's absolutely encouraging and shows that our artist and recreation committee is communities are alive and well. So I'm going to hope next year we up the amount of money that we can distribute through this program. But
Sure. 2 more things. Yeah, I also hope so. Is looking at like some of these are more like, these are ongoing programs, some are one-time projects. And so we could also look at it that way. I would definitely be in favor of like leaning more towards like fully funding a project versus then like kind of distributing the program stuff a little bit differently. Just something to think about. And then, I mean, this isn't on our evaluation criteria, but just something to be aware of too, as we are continuing to promote the RAP tax and ensure that the community continues to be supportive of it. Which projects are kind of like high impact visibility type projects that might ensure the continuity of the RAP tax, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to look at it, but I think it's a reality.
Oh, I think it's a good point, and also, you know, having a diversity of projects and programs that are funded, not all arts, not all music, you know, like.
Yeah.
But I also think that because we're a diverse committee, we're all going to have, you know, it's as objective as you can make it, but there's obviously subjectivity in any activity to look at grant applications and review them. And so I think just based on the diversity of the committee, we will hopefully, you know, be viewing this with through different lenses that will, when combined, kind of bring out the best projects and a diversity of projects.
But could we maybe note or remind ourselves that in that process, that is criteria after like a winnowing down, that we're looking at diversity, that we're not just all like an art. And maybe that will come out in one of the numbers, whether it's benefits to the community or, because you kind of said that the RAP is represented. Is that what you kind of said? But yeah, and then you're saying we want it not just all be in one, like parks or one art. So hoping it'll distribute out would be good, but maybe we have a little addendum that we actually kind of look at, make sure that we didn't just go 100% in one category. I don't think we will, but like you
I
just
think it would
said.
be
Good point.
useful to put like a general category on it. Like,
Yeah.
is it recreation, is it arts, or is it parks?
That's all I'm trying to say, is just to remind us.
Even if it's in both of them, if it is two, like what is the majority? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, we can kind of look at like which ones seem to be
And we'd
scoring.
be like, oh, well, that one won out because it was in a different area, or something.
I imagine this is just gonna be a lot of discussion and that, I don't know, I'm writing down sort of like things to come back to when we do all get together. So that maybe there's like some key questions we can ask as we kind of go through the scoring process and as we're, I don't know, we're trying to,
Well, I guess it would be
Come to a
helpful,
decision.
it would be helpful over the next month. When do we,
The 29th.
the 29th? If we have questions, we could send them all to Annie, and Annie, if you could send the response out to everybody, because we may be thinking about similar type questions, and then at least we say, oh, okay, that's how we'll look at that.
Sure, I'd be happy to compile
Okay.
questions, and if for some reason it seems like maybe we need to meet again, we can do that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
I guess if we're going to send scoring ahead of the next meeting, and then ideally be able to see it, the tallies before the next meeting, so we're not walking in just seeing it for the first time. What's the timeline for staff to have, for us to have that information to you?
Well, how much time do you want to have to review it? Because I could probably turn that around in a day, depending on the day, but, so, if you want.
I mean, all the applications are ready, right? They could be circulated.
Yep. So
Tomorrow.
it's all in a Google Drive, so as soon as, I wanted you guys to kind of hone in the evaluation criteria before we sent them out, but yeah, they're all ready. If you want hard copies, it'll take me a little bit longer.
And the next meeting's the 29th, right? Is that? Yes.
And that's a Wednesday. Would you want that the Friday before, the Monday?
So we'd meet, see where we're at?
I would hope, well, I want to streamline it, so we're not reinventing a wheel. I mean, I know community contributions has done it for years. I mean, others, I don't know that we have to totally reinvent the wheel of how to score it. So to waste multiple meetings, I mean, at some point, we're just gonna have to plow into it.
yeah.
Oh, you'll have plowed by the time you get to the next meeting.
Yeah, my assumption
Yeah.
was we would score them, combine them, have that spreadsheet information back, and then come into the next meeting ready to discuss funding and just plow through it till it's done.
We'll get some pizza.
And do we envision that what's presented to the council is going to end up something like the community contributions program did, where it's the name of the program, what we suggest, and then what they ask for? Or is there, like, did we ever come up with a format that we're presenting to the council?
No, but I think that will happen after we meet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
I'm just saying that's sort of relevant if you think of it from the end result to how we're getting there of what, because we're just a presentation, our suggestion.
I'd feel comfortable with, like, if we got all of our stuff scored by the 20th or the 22nd, somewhere in there, and then have the weekend before the meeting to really dig in again.
Okay.
and then just get
So what do
back
you
to.
say? When?
20th or 22nd, like the 22nd's the Wednesday before, so that would give
The
them 2 days.
20th, I I have a commitment on my radio show.
No, this is just to have our scores sent to them.
Oh, okay, okay.
Digitally.
Oh, I thought you were talking
Personally,
about
like,
meeting.
As a deadline.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
Do
that's
it
fine.
sooner, faster. I like the idea of a fake deadline of the 20th and then having it be the 22nd. So if it sneaks up on you, you'll be like, all right, you can do it.
Soft deadline.
A
part of
soft
it.
deadline, deadline.
But
Okay.
if you call it a soft deadline, then you know it's a soft deadline.
Because it might bring up tons of questions
Right.
and confusion, and it would give this flurry of activity. Is that okay? Like a soft deadline of the 20th and then the 22nd?
Does that feel like enough time for you?
Yeah, I think it,
Okay.
I'll get pretty quick. I love spreadsheets, so I'll
Yeah.
get something
Okay.
pre-organized.
You're willing to send something, maybe send something around a little earlier, and we can
Yeah.
all look at it and say, okay, this is what we talked about, this makes sense.
Yeah, or maybe even a form that you guys fill in your numbers, so it's all the same.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Reduce the number of copying and pasting.
And having ranked project proposals before, I would just say, like, take good notes about why you gave projects certain scores, because when
Okay.
it comes up in the meeting and somebody says, why is that, why'd you give that a 2? It's really hard to remember after you went through 17
Yeah.
or whatever
Right, okay.
projects.
Okay.
So, would you be kind of enough if we looked at the evaluation criteria and then we picked an imaginary one or an old one, like a rim to rim, and then we walked through how you would rate proposals? Just because you've been familiar with it, just as a little learning step. So say we, just as an imaginary thing, to see what things we come up with.
Yeah.
So like here was one a few years ago, rim to rim, watershed restoration. Ooh, riparian project work. I don't know. So anyway, in my mind, you'd start with quality because of proposed project, and we're going a 1 through 10. Oh, so I guess everything's imaginary. We'd have to be basing it on their budget, their project goal and designs, their completeness, how we feel the material they've put together is, because that's what we've listed under there.
Yep.
So then, that's more paperworky, and we just randomly pick a 1 through 10. Not randomly, but on quality, on value. Kind of basing on those 5 things, poor to
Right.
average.
And in some way, it's also good sometimes to
Okay.
go back to the first ones after you've gone through them, because you
And then-
are in some way, the only thing you have to judge them against is the other proposals, right? And I think,
I felt better just doing that right there.
Oh,
'Cause
good.
I just needed to work it out, and then I realized it'll work out. I just had to verbalize it.
Yeah. I'm also gonna verbalize this just because it's like when you're going through the questions, you can have the comments here on this colored side, even though those aren't.
Oh, I didn't get to that yet.
Yeah, so this is just all of the questions that were on the proposal, and so you can leave your comments and then, that's not scored, so then you can kind of have just your general notes and then have your scoring notes as well. They might be
Yeah,
slightly
we'll
different.
have to all come up with our own visuals, because I almost like this format better, where I could then, come down and do
Yeah.
that. So, awesome. Okay.
I think one of the challenges will be, how do we compare fast pitch Elite Moab's request with Moab Music Festival? Some really different applications. So I think we just have to pay attention to how we're looking at each application. And I think the suggestion to keep notes will be important.
and I would just say to make sure you're to stay focused on the evaluation criteria, right? Because that's what we ask people to speak to, and I think the only way you get yourself in trouble is if you're bringing in other things that are not part of what we specifically
Right,
asked
right.
applicants to speak to.
Oh, I guess I'm missing this whole thing. That's what my problem is.
Oh,
Was that just,
do, I think.
it's not in my,
Oh, it might be in there, it's just that mine is, I printed mine in color.
Molly, it's on the
Keep
back
going.
page of the one you're holding.
Somewhere I got
going.
it.
Very,
On the very
very
back
back.
page.
You're almost
Should
there.
have it right here.
Yeah.
well, it doesn't look like
No, no,
that.
flip
Flip it
one
over.
more over. Flip that page over.
Oh, it's,
There, is that it?
well, it's just, I guess his is just very linear.
It is
and
different.
Oh, it's a little different, but,
Yeah, I mean, he has a rating. See, I don't have any of that.
oh, well, I just wrote those on there myself, so.
Oh, he arranged it. He did a rating call. I know, sorry. I was
If
just
you
like-
want, I can take the evaluation criteria, this is what's in the packet, and add them under here. That's easier.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful for sure. I'm excited to read them. It'll be a lot to read, but it's good.
So I just wanted to point out, I think you made this comment in the last meeting, is when you get down to their organizational history and financial history, maybe rating that less. And having looked at the applications, I think that might be fair. There's a lot of people who are just getting started. I think that question kind of threw a few people, like, I don't really have a financial history. Does that, so maybe that would be 5 or some other type of.
Well, that's, I was going to bring up the concept of weighting the different categories. If we wanted to do that, like, as was suggested in that report from BYU, they talked about maybe one criteria area would have a higher weighting than another. And that would allow you to not give as much weight to the organization's history, et cetera. But then that gets complicated, but in a spreadsheet, does it automatically, so.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
That's the only one I would suggest maybe making it a 5, as
Yeah.
Annie just mentioned. I would be fine either way, but it did pop in my head again, like, that's the one that's not, in my mind, it's not as important as the quality of the project, the need, and the
Right.
benefits, right? Like, that's what really the funding, to me, is about, is what the benefit to the community is. And not penalizing groups that are new.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how weighting works, but I'm happy with the 1 through 5, or if it was like a out of 100, like 30, 30, 30, 10 or something like that.
Right, and then earlier you said 1 through 10, I think.
Oh, no, we're talking about if you were to say, like, quality is 1 through 10, demonstrated community need is 1 through 10, benefits to the community is 1 through 10, history is 1 through 5, because it's a less weighted requirement because we decided isn't as weighty as the other categories.
Okay, I agree with that.
Or you say quality of proposed project. You could give that area a 40% weight overall. So all our scores would be multiplied by 40% to get, you know what I mean? And then say the demonstrated community need, we'd give that a weight of 30%. So then the scores would,
I think we're just on Emily's 100-point scale, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. I'm on board. What in your mind would be a weight distribution that feels good?
I'm okay with whatever was designed. I like the 1 to 10 and then the 5, and just do that, make it easy. I was just trying to think of ways to
Yeah.
take into effect some of the other things we've just been talking about, but I'm perfectly happy with the 1 to 10 and then the 1 to 5 on the last one. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with the 10, 10, 10, 5. Are we-
Yeah.
Okay. And then will you send out a new scoring sheet with the rest of the applications? Thank you.
It's interesting that that was a question. That was the issue that people ran into and
There was,
applying.
especially some of the people that are working under an umbrella, it's like we don't have financial statements. So, but that's not the only criteria here. It's also if you think they can implement the project is kind of the bigger one, I think.
And you said you'll send these electronically, but then they'll also be available paper copies?
Yeah, so I have them all right now in a Google Drive if people are comfortable with that. And if you want hard copies, then let me know.
I would like a set.
Okay, so it might take me a
I'm
little bit of time
old-fashioned.
to print them out. How about you, Molly?
I'm okay on Google Drive
Okay.
until I'm not. See how that Google Drive goes.
And then in the Google Drive, I'll put this updated sheet as well.
Okay.
So you can start working off of
Yeah,
that.
sounds great.
Okay.
And then if we have questions, can we just agree to just like CC the group so we're all aware?
That
Or no?
starts to get into discussion
Oh,
outside of a public meeting.
I
So you've got to
see.
be, I mean, it depends on what it is. But if it's anything that's regarding a certain application, then it sounds like you're discussing it outside of this meeting.
oh, I see.
So to be safe, you send them to me and
Okay.
and then I can compile them and send them back out.
I'm glad I clarified that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or maybe, or if we were just being vague and asking like qualitative, like not naming any projects, but just like, so do we
I would
think we're-
advise against it.
Okay. All
I
right.
think that's a
I
good
was
idea, just
hoping
send
that
them.
was the whole goal of what we're doing.
Don't CC everyone,
Yeah.
Right.
is what
And
I
then
just
Annie
learned.
can figure out the response and what we want to,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. That way we can blame Annie for everything.
You can.
Right.
I'm just glad I'm not rating them.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I applaud your effort. This is going to be really challenging.
Is there money in the budget for, I had asked Kelly for a keg of beer and like a bunch of pizza?
I can get the pizza.
Oh, okay.
If you do, have one of us pick it up in person. Don't have it.
And I will say, just since it seems like we're kind of worked through this, the only feedback I've heard on the applications was that 500 characters is a very short.
Yes.
But I think we will appreciate
Yeah.
it when we start to look through these applications.
Some of people
Very
put their
mixed
font, I think it was more than 500, but there's a couple of fonts that I was like, I can't even read that. They wanted to get it in that box, but actually I didn't expect the box to be like, usually when you can make it so even though the box is this big, you can type more, and that's what I had thought we had done, but we didn't. So,
Oh, yeah, I just always thought you'd do an attachment or something.
so people did.
Oh, yeah, because I was like, you can't fit it in a box.
And also take notes too, like I've already got some notes of what we want to debrief when this is over, of how to refine it for next year. So take some notes on that as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I think working through the applications will be really helpful. I'll probably have a lot of feedback after that.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I did hear indirectly that there was one group that decided not to apply because maybe they weren't sure they had some issues with a couple of the sections. Maybe they just weren't sure how to do it. I think it had to do with finance questions, and they decided not to go ahead this year. But so maybe next year, as part of that open house, we could do something for potential applicants on finances. This is the kind of record where we would be looking for during the span of your project. And just so that they, oh, okay, we're not looking for these big, long bank statements. So
True.
I
Yeah,
would
if it's
just,
not useful, it's not useful. We can definitely reevaluate that.
so I think that what you're suggesting is a really good idea to meet and talk about what worked and what could be improved.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll have more to suggest, I'm sure, after we start going through these and reviewing them.
All right, well, if that's everything, good luck. And
Need a motion to adjourn?
that motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll see you guys in a month.
All right.
Last question, I know I always ask this, everyone knows, but, so then, is that our deadline, the 29th? Or are we,
Well, I think you guys have made an internal deadline of the 20th or
The 20th.
22nd.
no, I know, but I
Oh.
mean, what is our deadline to present to the council?
Oh, well,
To be over with it, like, deadline.
well, it really depends on how the meeting goes. If all goes well, you'll have a nice wrapped-up recommendation for council. If
And
you
that's not gonna happen.
and if you don't, I have us tentatively on, I don't know, I have to look at my calendar, the last council meeting in April, but that can be changed. What we
Okay,
really
no,
want to make.
That's what I was looking
Okay.
for, to make sure everyone, because otherwise it might just keep going, keep going, keep going. So I just didn't want that to happen.
But the hard deadline is that we want this to be done before the end of our fiscal year, so we would actually like to cut checks before June 30th.
Thank you. I know we talked about that before and just couldn't come up with it. Thanks.
We're going to be done on the 20th.
We're going to be,
Yeah.
Might have to be really,
Oh, and another thing is that I haven't looked through these, so there might be some projects that maybe aren't eligible. I haven't
Yeah,
gone through them,
yeah.
so that might be something, another thing to discuss or to talk about in that process.
I'm
That was
sorry.
a question I meant to ask.
Yeah.
Have you verified that everything?
We have not. Yeah, they rolled in fast and furious today.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so Andy, then, so